good evening. This is Business Today on ChannelEye, and on this program we talk about business, entrepreneurship and much more. And well, keep tuning into today's episode as well whilst we discuss business today. On today's episode, we have with us the advisor to the Group Management Committee of Hella Apparel Holdings, and also the founder of Kaylee Tea is none other than Udena Wickramasooriya. Good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Good to be here.
All right, so let's start off at the very beginning. You've had an extensive career, but let's take it way back and talk about the beginning of your career.
Well, I come from a family that's very entrepreneurial. My father started one of the first music production businesses in the country, a label called Surya. So I was in that context. I was into business from about, 10, 12, 15 years constantly. I had no aspiration to get into corporate life. In fact, I've never had this aspirations in my life. I still don't have goals, never had goals in life. Mm-hmm. Things came and I took it as it moved on. Post A-levels, I was clueless as to what I was to do. Did SIMA, got a job, started my first job in accounts, like most finance students would. And then my real serious, my first job was at this company called Chemonex. It was part of the CIC group. But after a short time, I moved to Unilever. That's really where my career got defined. I got the opportunity to work in multiple areas, from finance to audit to projects to planning to commercial functions, logistics, IT and human resources. I still remember when I joined, on the application I was asked how I want to see my career. Mm-hmm. And I clearly remember this. I said, I want to work in finance, it's to do with numbers. I want to work in IT because it's a future. I want to work with people because ultimately you work through people, and I want to work in agriculture because everything changes and the future is about change. And I was very fortunate over an 11-year period to work in all four aspects of the business. Also was very, very, very fortunate to work with some really superstar bosses. There's a vice chairman called Dr. Iftikhar Ismail. There's a chairman called Hans Wolfer. They all helped shape our thinking. Awesome people. So that was really the foundation. Then at one point I thought I've moved everywhere. I haven't really focused on my core finance. Mm-hmm. So I joined the National Development Bank into corporate finance, proper finance job, merchant banking, infrastructure funding. But I also wanted, Sri Lankan market has limited exposure, so I wanted to get international exposure. Right. So at that time I looked around and I said there were 3 industries in Sri Lanka, or 4 industries that was global. Tea, but other than, say, Dilma, everything was bulk, bulk black tea. There was Sri Lankan Airlines, but hadn't really made a mark even at that point as an international global airline. There was terrorism, which not an option. Of course, there was Sri Lankan cricket that was still coming up, and the 5th actually was apparel. Okay. So then I thought, if I want to get apparel global exposure, but being in Sri Lanka, because I don't fancy going and living overseas. Lots of people migrate today. I'm not a fan of it. I stay grounded here, and that's how I got into apparel. So if Unilever was really the first phase of setting the foundation, apparel for me was that second phase of my career. First it was MAS, and then I was involved in Brandix over like an 18-year period, 20-year period. And that helped me really test out a lot of things, because Unilever is a very structured, organized from concept to consumer, whereas this is a B2B business. You really don't have a hang of your variables. Competition comes from anywhere in the world. Fashion, you compete in terms of time, intense, and so these 2 sort of time periods helped define my career. Right. And then a few years ago, I quit industry, went into hibernation. I had this fancy for apparel, for tea, for export business, for testing certain concepts out. Can you really build a business that is in harmony with nature and people? And that's how my whole Calais Tea project started.
Right.
And that's what we do, organically grown in a forest ecosystem, high-end handcrafted teas being exported internationally. Played around a little bit in this time period, setting up or getting back into the music production business with my son. So done lots of diverse things. And then for whatever reason got back into the apparel industry with Hela.
Great. Now, during this journey as a businessman, what are some of the challenges you faced and what did you do to overcome them?
I don't really see life as challenges. There are things that have tested us where we haven't really thought ahead of time.
Right.
But if you figure out why you're in a particular business, why you're in a particular space, and what value you're providing to the consumer customer base, then I think business is quite simple. You know why you're there for, then you start thinking how you're going to provide that value, and then and that's where the whole communication piece comes, and your negotiations with customers, with the whole stakeholder piece as to this is why I'm here for.
Right.
So once you know why you're in business and what value you provide, I think the rest of it is quite easy. Of course, COVID comes, of course market drops, demand drops.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, these are times you've got to be in a way ready. COVID was completely unexpected, but there are ways to be ready to face stuff, moments like that.
Okay.
But once you come to a point that you really don't know, I think it's just your resilience of just sticking it out.
Right. Now, let's speak a bit about Hela Clothing and how does it differentiate compared to the others?
So the industry is defined by a few big boys, if I may call it that. Hela, in a sense, is the young kid on the block. From a internal perspective, it's very young, dynamic, vibrant, hungry, aggressive. So that's sort of who we are as a company. But I think where we really differentiate in the market space is the fact that we call ourselves a social capital focused company. Mm-hmm. In essence, our aim is to do right by all our stakeholders.
Okay.
And that's where we differ, because if every business exists to solve a problem, and a clothing business exists to solve the clothing problems of businesses, right, and of consumers. But if you look at industry, if you look at the world, we have a couple of serious issues. One is we talk of planet, but I don't know how much we know how badly we've damaged and how serious we are. So this is one piece that we're trying to solve. How do you do business with the least harm on the planet? The second serious issue is that the gap between haves and have-nots is widening. And we know that. And we're constantly trying to bridge that gap by sharing in some equitable form what we earn. So the fact that we're trying to be inclusive, we're trying to bring all stakeholders into this journey and share in some equitable form is, I think, how we are different to the rest of the industry.
Right. Now, I'd like to touch on Pride for Incomparability and social capital events. Tell us a bit about this.
Well, we started looking into the future. So I've been involved with Hela for about a year and a half. And we looked at what are we here for and what do we want to aim for. And we said we don't want to be a business that is comparable to everyone else. And we defined that position we want to go to as an incomparable position. And then we said, what's going to take us there? Obviously, strategy, plans, actions, all of that matter. But internally, as a culture, within ourselves, if we have the pride that we want to be incomparable, that we don't want to fail, that we want to do something special, and doing something special, unique, is being incomparable. And we said pride is what's going to get us there. So our theme for the year is Pride for Incomparability. So we brought a large pool of our executives together. We had this launch event of our theme, and we looked around at people who we could learn from. So Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca was one person, well documented what he's done, well established. Arjun Ranatunga as a captain of the 96 World Cup winning team, what he did in that context. And the third person who spoke was one of our own employees, one of our team members, one of our sample operators, who's building her life from scratch with complex social issues that she faces, and how she's on a day-to-day battle with life and surviving and smiling in the process. So we brought these three people to talk to us, to learn from them. And when we parted, at the end of the day, it was to understand this is where we are going, and this is how others have gone. To be aware that this is what we're going to do day in, day out. So the whole thing is about bringing people. Like I said, we're trying to bring all stakeholders together in this journey. It's about bringing our executive pool together. The second major event we did a month and a half apart from the first event was what we call the social capital graduation. I said we're trying to bring everyone together, inclusive. We brought 1,350 members of our workforce, our team members, to a hotel. First time, I think, in their life they've been to a hotel. And we recognized their achievements in terms of, following training programs and successfully completing training, skill upliftment, career enhancement. We also have a number of programs where we support the individual, the employee, the worker, their families, and then through them, the community beyond us. So one of the programs we have is called Diti Daruwa, where we provide scholarships to their kids, IT education, English education, make them employable, and help them find jobs. So that's one program. So recognizing some of them.
Right.
Diriliya is another program we have, which is about unlocking the entrepreneurial skills of employees. Because in this industry, what we pay, I guess anyone, you, me, everyone will say, I'd like to earn more. But there's a limit to what we can pay. And then we said, look, what if we teach people skills to become entrepreneurs? And that became very relevant, especially during COVID and during the economic crisis we went through. So we've got this program called Diriliya, where we teach business skills, try and figure out what they want to do as business, or do they want to run a business, how to run a business, provide them legal skills, financial skills, and help them find marketplaces and sell their product. Keep accounts, save money, reinvest back. And we recognized quite a few of them as well. So this was an event again where we brought a large pool of our workforce into one place and recognized what they've done and gave them hope and scope to do more with their life.
Right.
So both these events are about showing where we want to go and their role in this journey, and harnessing everyone's potential to unlock everyone's potential as part of that journey, or if they want to go on a separate journey. So the entrepreneurs, we make the statement that even if you leave us, we'll support you. You're still part of this Diriliya family, because they're building their life and through that, someone else's life.
Right. Now, when it comes to entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka, do you think that there is a bit of a gap compared to those who are entrepreneurs in foreign countries as opposed to Sri Lanka? How do you see entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka?
See, I don't really compare because our context is different. I think we've got to just look at our entrepreneurs as is and see, do we have gaps, or what's stopping them from becoming successful entrepreneurs? Business is about risk and return, right? It's very simple. People go fishing in half-made boats, putting their life at risk. People who go to Middle East just leave their families, go to unknown countries, unknown context. That's risk. Apparel workers leave their homes, come into areas they've never known, and try and build their life. That's risk. So risk is part of our culture. Now, how do we leverage that risk and make a return? And then in that process, we feel the skill set, to sharpen the skill set to do it professionally. I mean, you take the PETA. Do you find better businessmen than that? So it's about what's the gap. Going to market, what I have learned running my own business is going to market is the most, is the area where support is needed. So once you unlock that and you provide market spaces, I think people will flourish.
Right. Okay. Well, that was a really good answer, to not compare, but to really work with what we have, because it's different from region to region, and people's situations are different as well. Coming back to Hella, how do you think this company and the initiatives, the programs, how does that contribute to the industry?
I have to give a long answer to this. See, look at the industry from multiple perspectives. You look at the clothes you wear, you look at the shirt you wear. There's a collar, there's a placket, there's buttons. What your grandfather or great-grandfather wore must look the same, right? In fact, the product quality would have come down because you're trying to give something cheaper and cheaper. So as a product, there's been no advancement, or very little. You take communications, take a mobile phone from 10 years to now, you take automobile, you take every other industry. It's changed dramatically. So the consumer hasn't really benefited much. You look at the global brands. Do they make rocking profits? They don't. You take supply chain partners like us. Then you look at the Sri Lankan industry. I'll give you an analogy. Look at Bangladesh as a country, an economy, and Sri Lanka as an economy, and look at the progression over the last 10 years. You look at the Sri Lankan apparel industry and the Bangladesh apparel industry and see progression over the last 10 years. I won't give statistics because it's available on the net, right? You can find it. And that's how I see us as an industry. We've really missed the bus. So in an industry where the consumer is not getting amazing benefits, the brands are not really doing anything amazing. They're doing good stuff, no doubt. The supply chain partners are under constant pressure because it's on a B2B platform. And the Sri Lankan industry vis-a-vis, I'm just comparing Bangladesh. You look at Germany as a developed country, they're not, it's a sizable export industry in textile and apparel, machinery and other things. So they've found their niche. Bangladesh has found their niche and they're growing. Have we done the same? I'm answering your question with a question. So in that context, what is Hella trying to do? And how is Hella different? I answered it earlier from our purpose perspective. Because we're young and small and vibrant, our ability to move faster and define and set certain standards in certain areas is, I believe, how we're different, because we're quite strong in Africa, in Egypt, in Ethiopia, in Kenya, other than in Sri Lanka. So I don't want to really say, hey, we are better than the others, because each company has its own unique position. I mean, MAS has been a trailblazer. Brandix has done, with projects internationally, has done amazing work. Hydromoney has been in this country and gone global. And there are so many other companies like Orit and so many others. So we are part of that ecosystem. But the ecosystem has, in my view, things to do. And the Sri Lankan apparel ecosystem, textile and apparel ecosystem has things to do to be different. So I gave you a long answer to a short question. As an industry, as a country, as an industry, we have, I believe, a lot to think of afresh. And in that context, Heller plays its role as part of this ecosystem and has a bigger role to play for sure.
Right. And how do you think it contributes to the economy being a BOI export company?
So at a size level, we're about a $300 million business. We're not, substantially big compared to the bigger boys, but we're in the top 5, 6 constantly. Employment generation, globally we employ about 20,000 people, and that income, we're a Sri Lankan company, right? Ultimately that export revenue comes back to Sri Lanka. So in the context of generating export revenue, generating employment, creating value addition, like any other industry partner,
right?
We contribute our little bit, especially in this context.
Okay. Now, previously we spoke about social capital programs and the things that you as a company do to your employees and how you help them. But let's touch on some of the benefits that they gain in detail from these social capital programs.
Well, the first is financial.
Right.
Because if you look at the Diriliya program, we have, and we just recognized one person who over the last 12 months had a revenue of $1 million. So in fact close to about 100,000 a month, which is very special. We've had entrepreneurs who've purchased 3-wheelers, who built their homes, who support their kids through education. Lots of them who said, when the economic crisis hit, and everybody had to find a smartphone, right? Because education shifted from the physical world to the mobile world. And there are lots of people who've been able to support themselves financially. Secondly, it's given them courage of how to face difficult situations. So one of the things we did was, we have, say, close to 9,000 employees, 8,000 employees plus in Sri Lanka. We covered almost all of them in this program, which we called Emerge Stronger from the Crisis. So we went to every single factory, every single location, and we said there are 3 things you've got to do in an economic crisis. One, you've got to be mentally strong to face it. Resilience is everything. Number 2, you've got to figure out how to reduce your cost. So we had programs of saying, make soap home. It's much cheaper, it's easier. Make your shampoo at home. And the third is, how do you reduce expenses?
Right.
We had one entrepreneur, not one, actually more, who started building cookers at home, made a business out of it, and she speaks very proudly that she actually funded her kids' education. Her son and the 2 of them got together and started this business. So across agriculture, food, clothing, different multiple sectors, we've got a lot of winners in the process, and we create these pullers within the company to sell their product. So there's a captive market.
Right.
When customers come, we create these pullers, like farmers markets. We've partnered with Cargills, go to their locations in their village to home concept. We recently partnered when the Egyptian High Commission had a arts crafts marketplace. So we are collaborating with Urban Island Academy of Design, improving the design skills of some of our entrepreneurs. Okay. So income is one, added income is one, the courage to face difficulty and building resilience, learning new skills, upgrading their skills, and also moving up in their career ladders. Okay. So right now we have a pool of 49 team members who've gone through 46 sessions of training programs, and it's a very structured program where we are partnering Better Work in Sri Lanka, which is a ILO IFC partnership, to help to develop their career progression and actually promote people
Okay.
50% of the people who went through that program are already promoted in this year. So clearly, the team member has benefited. From a company point of view, it's that bondage, right? It's that personal touch you build, and the closer you are, the more trust you have, and your ability to talk of your problems and solve even problems at home. Women in our society have undergo all sorts of issues, and our ability to help solve that. And once that happens, your ability to retain employees, your level of motivation, the level of commitment to work, productivity, all of them over time tends to improve, and people start having faith in the company, saying this company takes care of us. So overall, the benefits have been quite substantial. This journey for us is new. It's about 2 years plus in all seriousness. So it's beginning to really drive benefits to the company, and a lot of these programs we do in partnership with someone. So I talked of the Better Work Partnership. We partner our brands like Tesco and PVH, where we work with brands like Calvin Klein and Tommy. So it's partnership with multiple stakeholders.
Okay.
So we're bringing them also into the family.
Right. Now, finally, let's talk about, coming back to you, let's talk about your role as an advisor and a coach, and what advice would you have for the young entrepreneurs and the businessmen listening out there?
So like I started off by saying, I really don't have goals in my life, and that's the way I was brought up, and that's the way I've always lived, to take what comes and make the best out of it. I would say live true to you. Listen to programs like this. Yeah, you'll pick up some things. Read, you'll pick up some things. But what worked for Steve Jobs isn't going to work for you. You know who you are. No one else can know you better than yourself. So start by trusting yourself. Do what you believe, and you will fail. I mean, we've all failed. I say this: I failed more than I succeeded. So you fail. Be humble about it, but fall forwards. Learn from that. So ultimately, if you're looking for a single sentence, say just do what you feel.
Right. Well, thank you so much for the valuable advice and knowledge. That was Udena Wickramasooriya, the advisor to the Group Management Committee of Heller Apparel Clothing and the founder of Cali Tea. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.